and trying to have this
What's
very
up,
moment.
yo?
So that is certainly part of the strategy here from the United States moving forward as President Trump wants to get those U.S. oil companies back where they were for so many decades.
Matt Rivers, who has covered the region for quite a few years for us. Matt, we appreciate it. He is live in Colombia. We'll go back to him as necessary. And again, breaking news here in New York City, coming to us from Aaron Katursky inside the federal courthouse here. Both Nicloas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, standing in that courtroom when called upon by the judge. The judge asking them if they understand the charges and asking if they can confirm who they are, summarizing the charges for them. Maduro standing, Judge Katursky reading the standard rights, and Nicloas Maduro responding, "I did not know these rights. Your Honor is informing me of them right now," he said. And then he was asked by the judge, "How do you plead to the indictment?" And again, as I mentioned, Nicloas Maduro declaring in that courtroom, but in essence, for the world, watching, not only here in the U.S., but around the world, these proceedings as they play out. Nicloas Maduro saying, "I am innocent, I am not guilty, I'm a decent man." And as I mentioned before, declaring that I'm still the president of my country. It was not long after Celia Flores standing in that courtroom as well, and she went on to say, "I am the First Lady of the Republic of Venezuela," which is when the judge interjected, saying the purpose today is to simply ask you who you are. Then a familiar scene playing out with her as well, the judge explaining to her her rights to remain silent, to be represented by an attorney. She said, "Yes, I understand this, I've heard this." And then when asked how she pleads to the 3 counts of the indictment that she faces, Celia Flores responding, "Not guilty, completely innocent." Martha Raddatz, we know there are proceedings playing out across town at the UN and the UN Security Council meeting to discuss the unfolding events in Venezuela, and you have new reporting?
Exactly. Just before these court proceedings started, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, said he was an illegitimate so-called president. He said Maduro was not a head of state and emphasized that over 50 countries rejected the legitimacy of Maduro's re-election following the disputed 2024 election. He also said, and this adds to those mixed messages we are getting from the administration, with Donald Trump saying we are running the country, talking about possible boots on the ground, that they're not afraid to put boots on the ground. Mike Waltz just said that the U.S. is not occupying a country, calling the U.S.'s actions a law enforcement operation. He said his Secretary Rubio has said there is no war against Venezuela or its people. We are not. Again, saying we are not occupying a country, again saying this is law enforcement. The United States arrested a narco trafficker. But as we've heard, the president again reiterated that he believes we are now in charge of that country. Waltz also did add that the U.S. would not allow, as Matt was saying, would not allow the Western Hemisphere to be used as a base of operation for our nation's adversaries and competitors and rivals of the United States. And as you know, David, there have been threats to other countries as well from President Trump, Colombia, Mexico, Greenland, and what the U.S. may do in those countries, David.
Our chief foreign correspondent, our chief global affairs anchor, Martha Raddatz, with us here this afternoon as well. Martha, thank you. Just in from the courtroom, and the moment that Aaron Katursky is allowed to leave this proceeding, he'll come out before the camera for us and give us color from inside that court. This is not expected to be a terribly long proceeding, though the color has been quite something coming from the courtroom. Right now, we are learning that the judge informing and his wife, the First Lady, as citizens of the state of Venezuela, you have the right to consult with consular officials. We understand it, and we would like to have such visits, Nicloas Maduro answered. He took notes during the proceeding. Nicloas Maduro did, and he asked the judge for permission to keep those notes. He did not ask for bail. Mr. Maduro is not seeking release at this time, is what his defense attorney, Barry Pollock, said inside that courtroom. Celia Flores, likewise, not seeking bail inside that courtroom. The judge did, however, make it very clear that he's open to receiving a bail application in the future, but that the couple will otherwise remain detained at MDC Brooklyn, which is a jail detention facility not far away in terms of distance from this federal courthouse, though the way they had to get them to the courthouse was somewhat dramatic this morning, being taken heavily fortified vehicles, and then flown to the island of Manhattan, and then brought to the federal courthouse in multiple steps here this morning. These are the pictures that we witnessed around 8 a.m. this morning as they were brought from Brooklyn to Manhattan and by helicopter, and then from the motorcade waiting for them to bring them into that courthouse. Significant security outside the courthouse this morning. There have been protests. There are signs on both sides weighing in with different opinions on Nicloas Maduro being removed from power, the way in which this played out. As Martha mentioned, a remarkable U.S. military operation, one where there has been praise for simply being able to pull this off, the size and scope of this, how dangerous it was, and yet no loss of U.S. life. We did learn that a couple of pilots, according to Martha, were injured, but then still able to fly to lead the operation and get through 2.5 hours in total. Nicloas Maduro and his wife were captured in those final moments as they tried to get into their safe room, their safe house within the presidential compound. They weren't even allowed to have enough time to get that door closed. So President Trump, in speaking to the nation, made it very clear, even if they had closed that door,
they would have got in.
that it would have been a matter of seconds.
What's up, Hayward Harris? How you doing, Hayward Harris? Hayward Harris, how you doing, Hayward?
Would have been able to blow their way through that door to capture Nicloas Maduro. Also coming in from the courtroom moments ago, Nicloas Maduro's defense attorney signaling the ousted Venezuelan leader may try to assert that he is entitled to protection from prosecution. Here's what the defense attorney said. This is the attorney for Nicloas Maduro moments ago saying, quote, of Maduro, he is the head of a sovereign state, adding that there are, quote, issues about the legality of his military abduction, calling this a military abduction. The attorney for the First Lady of Venezuela said that she was injured during the military operation and that she has requested a medical briefing, that Celia Flores has requested a medical briefing saying she was injured during the U.S. military operation. This is the quote from her attorney, quote, she sustained significant injuries. There's worry she may have a fracture or severe bruising on her ribs, according to her attorney inside that courtroom. The next date is March 17th. They've already been given the next date here, 11 a.m. in this very courtroom. The court has been adjourned. I'm told right now that Nicloas Maduro is being escorted out. I don't believe we're going to see him again. I think what we saw this morning was the extent of what we'll see, but the moment we see any movement on the ground here, of course, we'll bring that to you. We also know that Aaron Katursky, our chief investigative correspondent, who was inside the courtroom as all this played out, he'll be in front of the camera just moments from now to provide color from inside the courtroom. But again, court has been adjourned. Nicloas Maduro being escorted out of that courtroom inside the federal court here in Manhattan. Both he and his wife will be returned to that detention facility. Unclear if his wife will receive this medical briefing and how quickly. It's fairly likely she will. Unclear whether that will just play out as well at that detention center in Brooklyn. Dan Abrams also following this, our live coverage with us here, watching this unfold, and not surprising really, Dan, either one of us, how quickly this unfolded here this morning.
No, not surprising. Interesting, though, that he's now preparing to challenge his abduction, which is an interesting question, right? Because there are real arguments that as a matter of international law, the U.S. should not have been able to simply go in and grab Maduro. Now, the position of the government is it was a law enforcement operation, that the military was just helping to back it up. That may be a tough legal argument, but now that it's done, it's going to be very hard for Maduro to say, well, they shouldn't have been able to take me. Why would it be so hard? Because he was indicted. I mean, he was a wanted fugitive, in essence. So even if you were to believe, yeah, the government shouldn't have been able to go in and do that, I can't see how they would reverse that now and say, yeah, you can go back, even though he has been indicted in the United States court. So it's going to be an interesting legal debate, but I don't think it's going to be particularly decisive.
Dan Abrams with us here this morning. Aaron Katursky has just made his way outside the courthouse into a microphone. And Aaron, your notes were extraordinarily helpful here. As Dan and I were just talking about, quite quite something to hear that Nicolas Maduro will likely claim that there are issues, legal issues, about his military abduction, and he declared in that courtroom through his attorney that he remains the head of a sovereign state.
He did, David. He said, I am the president. I am still the president of the Republic of Venezuela. His wife, Celia Flores, likewise said that she is the first lady of the Republic of Venezuela. And Defense Attorney Barry Pollock signaled that he will challenge the circumstances of Maduro's capture by the U.S. military. This is a tactic that Manuel Noriega tried when he was found to have surrendered to U.S. forces in Panama back in 1990. It did not work in the U.S. courts then. It may not work now, but he will certainly try. But the U.S. just doesn't recognize Maduro as a legitimate president. He certainly does. And as he stood before Judge Alvin Hammerstein a short while ago, he declared himself, I am Nicolas Maduro, I am innocent, I am not guilty, I am the president of Venezuela.
It did seem from the notes that you shared with us from inside the courtroom, Aaron, that the judge signaled fairly early on here that there would not be time for speeches, that will come in due time through their defense, that he was simply asking for them to confirm who they are, that they understand the charges against them, and ask them their plea, that both when Nicolas Maduro spoke and when Celia Flores spoke, the judge interjecting essentially in so many words saying this is not the time and place for that.
Exactly right, David. The judge did not want this to turn into any kind of a spectacle, and he wanted to keep this as ordinary as is possible, despite the extraordinary circumstances of how Nicolas Maduro got here. He is now being treated like every other criminal defendant
Every other criminal.
federal court. David, as the judge asked Maduro to affirm, he appeared to be prepared to go off on a lengthy speech declaring himself the rightful president of Venezuela, challenging why he was even here in the first place, and the judge just was not going to let him do it. At least at this stage, he said he would entertain motions in the future, and Maduro does not have to be back in court until March 17th. In the meantime, he is going to be detained at MDC Brooklyn, the decrepit federal jail, where every other defendant awaiting trial here at Manhattan Federal Court is held. The defense said they would not challenge Maduro's detention.
I gotta get ready to hit the floor later on and get my stuff
They
ready.
have the opportunity to try and do that in the future.
Describe for me, if you will, Aaron, the scene inside that courtroom. They were both brought in. I know they were both shackled, brought to their chairs, seated not far from one another. Was there any sort of communication, even a glance between Nicolas Maduro and his wife sitting not far from him in that courtroom? How did this play out?
It did not appear that Maduro and his wife looked at one another, but they were seated with just a lawyer between them. And at one point, when the judge informed them of their right to be in contact with consular services, with someone from the Venezuelan Maduro answered for both of them and said, we would like
what's his name?
to take advantage
One
of
of the
those
cats.
consular services, but
Not
otherwise it
Osama,
did not
the other
appear
one.
that Maduro and his wife interacted at all. Maduro was brought in
Look like
first
somebody.
wearing beige pants, a black smock over an orange t-shirt, and orange jail slippers. He was escorted to a chair that the U.S. Marshals had flipped over